Well, that's good because I could not remember it.
Um, what have you guys done so far for studying?
So I took your class and then I did your study exams online. And then I read through the books and then the workbooks, and that's what I used to study.
Okay. How long ago did you take the class?
December of 2022. No. Yeah. December 2021. 21.
Okay, so about a year ago, about a year and a
Yeah.
month ago. Okay. By the way, you and anyone who has taken a class from me, you're welcome to repeat it for no charge. You're welcome to join. Most of the classes I do today are Zoom, and you're welcome to, you can get 4 days off work. Welcome to sit in on a class again.
Yeah, I might have to do that.
Yeah.
I could remember it for like the first 6 months, and then after that, I couldn't. It start leaving my mind.
Yeah. Kim, how about you? Are you focused on getting a PMP or a CAPM?
Well, I took a prep class, probably 5 years ago. And I'm thinking about taking another one because I didn't go through with it. So I probably need to take another one.
Yeah. Oh, they are helpful, of course. I'm hoping a few more people sign on here. I'm just getting started doing these, and so they're a little bit hit and miss. These are lunchtime webinars, and they're supposed to be interactive. So, you know, where we'll also bring questions and insight to questions other people have. Well, so the test, yeah, I took I took the PMP exam way back at PMBOK version 4. PMBOK version 4 really had some holes in it. It was pretty good material, but it didn't quite all match correctly, and there were some glaring inconsistencies that, as I started teaching the course, you had to kind of teach around the inconsistencies. But when PMBOK 5 came out, they fixed most of that. PMBOK 5 was a really good publication that took care of a lot of those problems. And then PMBOK 6 came out, and PMBOK 6 was a better version of 5. It was, you know, all those problems fixed and a little bit of new content. PMBOK 6 included three things that were significantly new. One was the business case, the whole idea about what a business case is, why a project manager might need to know how to create a business case. And also how to do a post-project ROI analysis. That was also a new concept. And also they formalized the continual improvement process where you're supposed to take project reports and when you're finished with the project and file it away along with the project totals, like the lessons learned, risks that were identified, estimates for actual comments from primary stakeholders about what went well and what didn't go well, could have been better. And you're supposed to file all that away, and then also in the future, when you're doing a project, when you're in the initiating or the planning process group, you're supposed to be disciplined to go back and look at the project historical library to find lessons learned and risks and comments to help you make better decisions going forward. Before version 6 of the PMBOK, they used to just recommend that, but in version 6, they formalized it into steps in the process. That was also a significant change. And along with that, you know, they introduced the Agile practice guide and kind of suggested that Agile was coming and that, you know, it was healthy for you to learn about Scrum, which is the most common Agile framework. And then they changed the test and made Agile half the test. And that's the change they made last year. They made 50% of the questions now are based on Scrum, Agile project management. And so that's kind of where we're starting today, is talking about all the things that you need to know for the exam or is credit. Looks like Jeremy's online now. Jeremy, just for fun, tell us, are you trying to get a PMP or a CAPM? How far along are you in the study process?
I'm ready to go. Time to go.
We've got little project manager in the back there. All right. Well, so let's go ahead and talk about what you need to know. Let me talk about the test itself first, and then we'll get into some study aids that can help you. So the test right now, 50% of the questions are on Scrum, which is the most common agile development model. And there's lots of ways to learn about Scrum. You can get books out there on Scrum. There's a zillion of them. You could take a Scrum Master class. Some of the PMP classes, like mine, actually we spend half a day learning about Scrum. This is the basic Scrum model. And Scrum is an alternative project management technique. And here's how I think about it, how I talk about it in class. As project managers, there's two types of challenges you're faced with. Trying to keep the glare off. There's what I call disorganized disorder, and there's chaotic disorder. And disorganized disorder is where you have to build something that there's lots of them out there. There's lots of precedents already. You know, like you have to build a building or a road or a bridge, and there's lots of them out there. You can talk to people who have built those things before, and get information from these subject matter experts that help you make a better decision going forward. And in a challenge like that, a typical PMP traditional project management process is how you approach something like that. You create your plan, and then you work your plan, and then you're done. Track progress along the way and everything. And but the other kind of challenge is a chaotic challenge, and this is where you're tasked with doing something no one's ever done before, like sending somebody to the moon, or like Elon Musk wanted to make reusable rockets, and no one's ever done that before. So he had to kind of learn. And when you're in a situation like that, you don't have all the answers. There's a lot of what they call it a wicked problem. That's actually what it's called. You don't have all the answers. You have to learn as you go. And what we discovered is that a better approach to that kind of a challenge, rather than making a big old plan and trying to work the plan, because everything changes and you don't have all the answers in day one anyway. A better approach is an agile approach where you use lists to guide you, and not big old plans, but lists. So you have a list of project objectives and success criteria to begin with, and then you create what we call a product backlog, which is a list of known kind of smaller objectives. And then you have a list of what you're going to accomplish for the next few weeks. We call that a sprint backlog. And then you have a daily list, a really short list of what you're going to do that day, like this objective or that objective. And so we work forward towards our goals, always evaluating all of these lists to make sure that they're up to date and accurate. And it turns out that's actually a pretty great way to deal with uncertainty. And so that's what an agile project is all about. And so Scrum is the most common type of agile project framework. That's what we teach on. Half the exam is on Scrum. And that's good for you, because Scrum is actually pretty easy to understand. This chart might look complicated, but like this is it. Like this chart is it. So all the questions that pertain to this, what's on this chart right now. And so, so that's half of the exam. You can really explain Scrum to somebody in about 15 minutes. And so they ask half the questions based on simple concepts. So that's really good. The other half of the test, the remaining half of the test, about 25% overall, so like half of the half, like 25%, is on the new PMBOK 7, and I've got one here. Looks like PMBOK 7. See how thin it is? A nice improvement from PMBOK 6. So this is 7th edition, and I'll tell you, surprisingly, this book is not a book on how to manage projects. That's not what the PMBOK 7 is. The PMBOK 7 is a guide for being a good, effective, professional leader. That's what the PMBOK 7 is. It's a book full of soft skills. We talk about, how to do team building, how to do conflict resolution, how to do stakeholder engagement, how to do change management, how it's like that kind of stuff. And it's an excellent book. It's a fantastic publication. I have friends that are not in the project management field. I tell them to buy this book and read it, keep it on their business shelf of the business book. It's really that good. So 25% of the test is on soft skills. Really, that's what this book is, soft skills. And then the remaining 25% of the test, well, a few of those percentages are on a few things like the code of ethics, PMI's code of ethics. And there's a little bit on like corporate strategy, just enough to kind of understand some basic foundation principles like what's a strategy plan, and that your project should align under the corporate strategy, and that's about it. So, maybe what a SWOT analysis is, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. So that 25% remaining, what PMI has done is they still, everything from PMBOK 6 is still valid material for the exam. So if you have a PMBOK 6, keep it. It has become super valuable because they don't publish this book anymore. They don't print it anymore. And it's big thick book full of the 5 process groups and a bunch of other information. What they have done instead is they discontinued the PMBOK 6 and they have published a thinner version of it. It's called the Practice Groups Process Guide. Practice Groups and Process Guide. This book you may not have heard of. This just came out in January. It's about 5 weeks old. And what it is just the important stuff in the PMBOK 6. So it has the same framework we've been using in PMBOK 6, but it's just condensed to a shorter guide. So what you could say is that these 2 books together, the PMBOK 7 and the Practice Guide, are now the primary study materials for the exam, along with this book here, the Agile Practice Guide. And the Agile Practice Guide is what PMI has published to go along with the Scrum, the Scrum part. So these 3 books are kind of the core study elements for the exam, and together in a set, they look like this. And so this is a brand new thing. The transition is just happening, so there's a whole lot of confused PMP instructors out there and PMP course deliverers out there that are all scrambling to update their material to resemble the new set of books. I'm one of them, so I'm speaking as a community here. We're all like, oh, okay, now it's this book, okay, and so we're all scrambling because our material has page references and everything to PMBOK 6, so we're now scrambling to put everything now in this book here. It's kind of a project, and so that's kind of interesting. In addition, I want to show you some other things that are helpful. Obviously, if you take a PMP study course like the kind that Red Rock provides, what you get with that is if it's a good training provider, what they've done is they've taken the material in those books and made them more interesting and easier to understand. So you'd end up with some kind of study books that the provider gives you. That's a really good thing. I would beware of if there's a training provider that just kind of walks you through the book. I call that really low value training. I mean, basically, you could read the book yourself or twice or 3 times or something. I have a sister that read all the PMBOK publications 3 times with the exam passed it. So that was before I became an instructor for it. But the lower quality training companies will just simply take the book and read you through it from front to back cover. And why that's not especially helpful is these books are written like encyclopedias. They're not really written like, here's how you work it. project. Here's the starting point. Here are the 5 process groups. Here's what the first process group's like. Here's the transition point between the first and second process group, etc. All the way through until you're done with the project. And so, make sure you find an instructor and a course that's set up like that, where they walk you through what a typical project would look like, how to initiate the project, which is take an idea or take an approved project, how to put your project plan together, which is really identifying your 3 baselines of scope, schedule, and cost baselines, how to execute your project, which is taking that project plan and converting it into approved deliverables, and then how to monitor and control the work being done as it's being done. And monitoring and controlling is really about 3 things. It's about integrated change management, it's about quality control, it's about your project status update meeting. And then finally, when the last deliverable is approved by the sponsor, how to properly close out your project. And the 4 steps to closing out your project. First, you make sure that all the deliverables and objectives are completed and accounted for. Second, you transition the deliverables wherever they're needed. Third, you hold a project closing meeting, like a project retrospective, if you will. And from all the primary stakeholders, you get there, what could have been better, what went well, feedback. And then the 4th step is you take all that information and you put it into your project historical repository as you close out the project, so that you can tap into that information later to make better decisions. And that's a good company will walk you through that sequence like that. So project should. I want to show you a few other things also, and they should have some kind of chart or something to help you understand what this looks like. This is ours that we have at Red Rocket. So here's where you'd start your project. You walk you through all the different flow chart steps all the way down. There's a couple of good books also that are good to have, both to study with, but also just to have on your shelf. It's a project management professional. This is one of them. It's called the Project Management Answer Book. This is a really good book. It's been around for a little while, but it's important to understand something too. The project management framework and the criteria, it hasn't changed every 2 years. It's been improved every 2 years. You understand what I'm saying? It's not like they said, "Oh, we used to tell you to do this, but now do that instead." That's not really what's happened. It's evolved into more and more meaningfulness and more value. So even though some of these books are a few years old, they're still really valuable and really applicable. So this one is Project Manager's Answer Book by Jeff Furman. And he just has a whole bunch of good street advice for working projects. And I found out through one of my connections at PMI, they actually took some of this material and it's on the internet. So I wouldn't get too distracted by this for studying. Really stick with the PMI books and whatever you got through the training class. What they gave you, but this is just a good reference to additional information. It's the project manager, project manager basics, integration management, project planning, controlling costs. It's kind of like all the basic concerns of project management written down. Here. Here's another book that's useful also. This is called Effective Project Management: Traditional, Agile, Extreme, and Hybrid. Yeah, I'll talk about what those are here. But this is also a good book that's good for studying, but also it's good just to have on your desk for and to read. When I say have on your desk, I mean read. I'm a book reader. You know how you get smart to read books. That's how you get smart. So you need to become a reader. If you're not, it will help you in all kinds of ways. So that's another book that's also valuable here in Effective Project. So let me talk about some trends in the project management industry that are happening. There's a new kind of project type that's emerging called a hybrid project. What a hybrid project is it's kind of like, here's how it started. The agile movement is a big deal, and there's a lot of data that shows that projects done an agile approach are more successful and do finish faster. And not only that, but the team morale goes up when agile project approaches. So it's good for everybody. The problem is the traditional agile projects, you don't manage dependencies, because when you build software, which is where the agile movement came from, you have to build software dependency based. There's no other way to do it. So you don't really have to map it all out, because there's just a natural chain of dependencies. That's how you build your software. So the people that put Scrum together were working in a little box where they didn't really need to manage dependencies. And so that's one of the reasons why Scrum is so simple and seems to work well in those wicked problem environments. Well, some types of projects you have to require dependency management. You just have to, like implementation is a good example. If you're going to install a bunch of software somewhere, there's like 25 steps or something in your implementation process, and they all have to come mostly in order. And so you can't get away from managing the dependencies in a situation like that. So you end up with a Gantt chart and some kind of formal project management set of artifacts, like a work breakdown structure, Gantt chart. Yeah, but the team wants to work in an agile environment for all the other reasons we talked about. So what they do then is they take that Gantt chart, convert it into a Scrum model, where the Gantt chart becomes product backlog, and the team still works in sprints. They still have daily stand-up meetings. They still have, goals to get X, Y, and Z done on the Gantt chart by the end of the sprint. Does that make sense? How to describe it? And it works. And so what you end up with is really the best of both worlds. You've got dependency mapping and dependency management when the project starts off like a traditional project, but then you have it was able to work in a sprint-like manner, and which is a lot more fun. It's a lot more fun to work in agile team, a lot more social. You're able to get wins every day as you show your team what you're able to accomplish every single day. And so that's becoming super popular. There's a company called Version One that writes some agile project management software, and they do a survey every year of what kind of agile practices are going on in the industry. And their data shows that companies that say they're agile, 70% of them are really doing these hybrid projects. They're not doing just pure Scrum. And so that's a real eye-opener statistic. And so PMI's realized there's a whole new movement that's brewing, that they are creating process guiding for. Those are called hybrid projects. So you'll see like maybe one question or two questions on the PMP exam about hybrid projects, because they're kind of brand new. It's about all you'll see. But that's what they are. And personally, my opinion is that will become more and more and more mainstream until pretty much that's how we do projects going forward, because you could make that work in construction and all other kinds of projects that right now don't really work in Scrum because but so that's something to be aware of. All right. What questions can I answer for you about what else to study? A good test simulator, I need to add, is also good and important. If you go through an exam prep company, they ought to have a good simulator for you with lots and lots of questions. Let's see, a good, maybe like 500 questions or more is healthy. I know that my company has 1,200 questions in our PMP simulator. I didn't really, which is one of the biggest in the industry. I didn't really intend it to be that way. It's just when you keep adding questions over a decade and a half, you end up with a huge test bank. There's also a really neat option that's out there now. PMI now has their own sort of mini test simulator. I think it's $99 and it's, 50 questions or something, maybe 100 questions. But the questions are very similar to the actual exam. In fact, people that have taken the exam have told me the same questions in their like test bank were on the actual exam. A lot of the same questions. So I've heard that from multiple people. So that's a resource available to you if you haven't heard of that. It's a really great idea. So the week should I prepare before taking the test? Okay, that's great. So somebody's asking, how many weeks should I prepare before taking the test? You know, you can do it in a short amount of time, in just a number of a few weeks. It just depends on how much time you spend in the study process. Here's how one way I think you can tell that you've studied enough. When you realize everything you're exposed to, you've already seen before. You know, like you pick up another book on studying for the PMP, and you read through the table of contents, and you understand everything you're looking at. If you can do that a little bit, I think you're ready for the exam. A test simulator, though, is a really good idea. And like I said, if you're not part of a training, a training providers program, a great idea instead is to use the the PMI's test simulator bank that they offer, and you can walk through that and see. But anywhere from 2 weeks to a couple months, I think, is a good healthy point to study. You know, somebody was saying when the call began that they took, actually it was my class they took, and they said they kind of remembered everything for about 6 months and then it started to fade. So if you study hard, there's a sort of level of knowledge that starts to decay after a while if you're not living it and doing it every day. And so you want to take the test before that decay starts to begin. And so my recommendation would be anywhere from 2 weeks if all you're doing is studying for the exam, to a couple months to be kind of how to think about preparing for it. And some people are quicker learners than others, and that's okay. You have to kind of know yourself and if it's something you want to spend time on. But I tell people, focus on the material. Don't focus on the exam. Focus on the material, because it is a finite amount of information. And once you've been exposed to it, figure out a way to test yourself so that you can tell if you've learned it the right way. And my courses I teach have mechanisms built in for that. Our test simulator shows how your aptitude is compared to people that have come before you and passed the test on the first try. It will show you how your scores in the test simulator are matched there. We tell people don't even take the test until you're at that point. And so that's been really useful for our students. But that's important. All right, what other questions can I answer for you about and preparing for the exam? Talk about the exam format a little bit. There's now there's 180 questions on the exam. It used to be 200. I have no idea why they dropped 20 questions. I'm guessing it had to do with some kind of math formula where they were calculating time or something. Somehow it gave better metrics if they had 180 instead of 200 questions for the block of time. So for the CAPM, it's 150 questions instead of 180. And also the difference between the CAPM and the PMP is that the CAPM is for people without any project management experience, but they want to become project managers. CAPM. And let me tell you, a CAPM is an excellent portal into a wonderful career path. So if you have 20-year-olds that are past high school, maybe finishing college or something, looking for what they want to do, a really great idea is to have them get a CAPM and then get hired somewhere as a CAPM. Companies know that CAPM candidates are new to project management. They get that, and they'll have a plan to take that new CAPM hireling and kind of keep them under somebody's wing for a little while, make sure that they kind of get up to speed. But I tell you, a project management career is a fantastic career. I have I have two of my siblings, well, two of my sisters are project managers, they're both PMPs, and they, they make a lot of money. They work at home. They're moms. They really have it made. They've got a great lifestyle, and they like what they do. It's stressful at times, but they can handle it. Um, it's just a great thing to do. So that's one of the ways to get into a good career is just take a CAPM, pass a test, and go job shopping. The CAPM exam is based on the structure of the framework, whereas the PMP is based on the situations. So, it's like you're working for a company that does projects for the government, and a large dam or something, like they say you're building a dam for some area. Dam project is about finished. So what would probably be the attitude of your employees? And you have 4 different options, and you have to understand that a company that does projects like that, they kind of go from project to project to project. And so if the project's finishing up, well, everybody's kind of nervous, hopeful there's going to be another project, because if there is not another project, guess what? Everybody's going to be laid off. So, questions are more like that, where you have to understand the scenario and what the dynamics are, and then the ways from that. That's how the PMP is different from CAPM exam. CAPM exam is a difficult test. I've taken it. I've taken both of them. So I can tell you from experience, it's a difficult exam. People that have a CAPM certification have worked very hard for it. And so respect them, when they show up at their job site. Let's see. There's also something called an exam content outline. This is something you can download from PMI's website. You can even Google PMP exam content outline. What it is, it's a simple, like an 8-page document that PMI publishes that has kind of in broad, sort of vague terms, what you would need to know to be able to pass the exam. And good training providers, they're all over that. They've already taken that document, they've already taken that information, and they've already put that information into their training guides. So you would expect that of a good training provider. So you may not necessarily ever see that document, but a good training provider, that's what they've done. They incorporated all that into their books. But if you're studying by yourself, that's a good thing to get a hold of. And you can ask yourself, do I understand this? Do I understand this? Could I explain it to somebody? Could I explain this to somebody? And so that's also a good tool to use for studying. Let's see here. And yeah, don't forget the ethics questions I mentioned. A little percentage of the exam will ask you a few ethics questions. Surprisingly, it's kind of hard to find PMI's code of ethics. I know that because I spent some time searching for it. It's not as available as you think it would be. But if you Google around enough, you'll find it. I'll tell you one place you'll find it is when you is submitting your application. Before you click submit, they ask you to check that terms and conditions checkbox. If you click the links back to the terms and conditions, you can sort of find your way to the code of ethics, and there you can read about it and everything. I don't know why it's so hard to find. You'd think something like that would be really easy to find, but it's I know we include it in the course I teach. We include it in the workbook. It looks like this. It starts like 7 pages, and just it's like we will respect people's property, and we will respect the safety of others. That's that kind of stuff. It's good. It's a good code of ethics for a big professional body, and they'll ask you questions like, who does a code of ethics apply to? And there's 4 groups of people. It's people that hold certificates, people that are members that don't necessarily hold certificates, people that have applied for a certification, and then the last group are volunteers at PMI events. So So supposedly everybody volunteering at a PMI event, if they're not a member, they've had to sign a code of ethics to participate. And let's see, what else can I tell you? Here's a really neat book, Facilitator's Guide to Participatory Decision Making. This is really a book for project managers. Once they start working, doing their job, this is a book full of great ideas for team meetings and group meetings and brainstorming sessions and decision making and all kinds of stuff. It's a really good book. Facilitator's Guide. Where is it? This isn't really a study book for the PMP, but I'm telling you, if you want a fun book that's really useful after you get your PMP, this is a really good book to get your hands on. It's just full of great ideas. Like I say, brainstorming, fun games you can play to break the ice, discussion techniques for groups, listening skills, to get people participating more than not, and giving feedback. It's just full of all that kind of stuff. It's a great book. Yeah. By Sam. And I've seen other books like this in the past. This by far is the best one I've ever seen. All right, well, I think that's about it. Any other questions for how to study for the current PMP exam? All right, well, I hope you found this enjoyable. I'm going to be doing this every couple of weeks with different topics. You're welcome to join me, and you're welcome to pass the links around to anybody you want. I'm just trying to be a little more helpful to the online community with basic information. So I appreciate you guys being here. Hopefully you were able to eat a nice, tasty lunch while we were here. Let me know if there's anything else I can answer for you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, I want to also remind you that if you go to blog.redrockresearch.com, there's a lot of this information there as well. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a bunch, and have a great weekend.
You too.
Okay, all right, bye-bye.